started now, folks. Thank you all very much for coming on out. This is the second of 3 meetings that we're going to have about home rule and about the government study commission process. We've been trying to inform everyone as best as we can. It's now up on our website if you want to take a look at it, the earlier program. We have a couple of people here I want to introduce. First is Lauren Sukovic, and she is from Public Financial Management. I work closely with her. She's what I call one of the overlords. The other one is Troy Kaiser, who is with the State Department of Community and Economic Development. And then we also have the director of the Governor's Center for Local Government Services, Kathy Rosdick. I can't read my, Rosdick. And she's the director of the Governor's Center for Local Government Services, and she oversees overall the DCD Act 47 program. So she's here to help with us. I'll start with Lauren. She has been working with us very closely, understands Newville probably better than 80% of the people in Newville. So come on up, Lauren, and take care of it.
Bob, are you doing the slide?
Yeah, so Bob referred to us as one of the overlords. I'll say we're the Act 47 recovery coordinators, or PFN is the Act 47 recovery coordinator for the borough of Newville. Some folks may be familiar with Act 47, that process. What does that mean? I'll just give a brief snapshot for folks that are not familiar. Act 47 is basically a part of Pennsylvania state law, which gives certain abilities and certain restrictions to communities that are designated as financially distressed. So we started working with the borough in early 2023. Our team looked at the borough's finances, and the borough council basically asked the state, Troy and his team, to look at the borough's finances and determine if they met criteria to be considered fiscally distressed under Act 47. And at that time, the answer was yes. These are basically the key things that report that determined that the borough was financially distressed and met the criteria to go into Act 47. These are the main findings of that report. The first one was the borough had very low cash levels. At the time, you'll see in a second, visually what that looks like, and we'll talk about what kind of that means for the financial management for the borough. But at that time, the borough didn't really have enough money in the bank, didn't have enough cash in the bank to actually pay for the bills when they came in. So what did they do? They held on to bills. They borrowed money from certain places like their highway fund. They stopped paying for their pension for many, many years because they had low cash levels. They couldn't pay for things like an electricity bill would come in and they'd have to kind of figure out, are we going to pay this or are we not? The second bullet I sort of alluded to was they had a lot of missed payments. There were missed payments to not only their pension fund, which was the biggest piece of what we're calling liabilities, or basically things that the borough has to pay now. There were also just bills to vendors. They had contracted services, they had internet bills, light bills, things that just hadn't gotten paid because of the low cash levels. And the last piece, which, there's the lack of funds, but then there's also this other piece, which is poor financial management, and that also goes along with the lack of transparency at the time. Every government is required to publish a financial audit at the end of each year. It basically shows to the public, to the taxpayers, holds the government accountable for what revenues were collected and from where, what expenditures were spent, and on what. The borough had not done that in about a decade, and now we're starting to kind of work on addressing these three major bullet points. So where are we today? That was back in 2023. The borough, we've been working with the borough since the spring of 2023. They entered Act 47 oversight over the summer, and what's happened since then? So the first thing we want to share is the borough's cash position was really the first thing that we needed to address. One of the places that you borrowed money from in the beginning was you had a cash flow loan. Basically, you take out money in the beginning of the year in anticipation of you collecting taxes, and you hope to pay that back by the end of the year. And at that time, it seemed like you weren't going to be able to pay that back. Oops, sorry, we can go back one more. This year, we didn't take out any cash flow loan. The borough was able to basically sustain its operations, and if this sort of faint gray line is zero is you running out of cash. We don't anticipate you running out of cash or even coming close to that by the end of this year. And that's basically sustained by the tax revenue, the higher Act 47 earned income tax. The blue dotted line is where you started, basically, that we had projected that you would run out of cash at some point towards the end of the year. So what does this mean operationally? What does this mean for the borough managing its finances going forward? When a bill comes in, the borough can just pay it when it's due. You don't need to hold on to anything. What does this mean for borrowing money from other places? You don't need to do that anymore. You don't need to withhold paying your pension fund. You don't need to use money that was meant for the highway fund or other places to pay for electricity or for salaries and wages. So that's kind of the going forward. The leak has been basically plugged. The cash flow is stable at this point. This table basically is how is the borough kind of paying for the sins of the past. So these are what we're calling the past due debts, outstanding liabilities, whatever you want to call it, from the many years that things were not paid for appropriately or timely. You don't just start from zero and move forward. You actually have to go back and make those things whole. The first two lines here are the pension funds. So you have employees of the borough. You promise at a certain point that when you retire, this is the benefit that you're going to be able to collect on based on the service that you gave to the government. These are amounted to over $600,000. It's the biggest piece of the outstanding liabilities. And for the non-police, which is basically any employee that is pensionable, that is not a police officer, that was fully repaid this year. Where it says in progress, this is basically a little bit more than halfway paid at this point, and most of that remainder is actually going to be repaid, we hope by the end of this year, if not early next year, with state aid. Most of these other things are either in progress or have already been paid, including some loans that the borough had defaulted on in the past. This is really just for context on the borough's budget. Right now, you have two major revenue sources. You have the real estate tax, which is the millage that is levied on property in the borough of Newville. This is, the school district also levies both of these taxes, but today we're just talking about the borough tax. The real estate tax, I'm taking the second one first, but levied on the assessed value of property within Newville. We think about property tax a lot of times as being paid by homeowners, but renters also actually pay property tax indirectly through their rent. If you're a property owner and you have renters in the building, you're going to pass on those costs to your renters through whatever rate that you set. When we say generally doesn't grow very much without a tax rate increase, what do we mean by that? The assessed value, the amount that the tax is levied on, is not actually based on the market. So let's say today your house is worth $100,000 and next year it's worth $200,000. Great for you. That sounds like a great value. But the taxable assessed value is actually probably still that $100,000 unless the county, this is again outside the borough's ability, unless the county does a reassessment and revalues that property to $200,000. So the base, the amount that you actually pay the tax on, really doesn't grow very much from year to year. Counties, I don't know about Cumberland County last time we've done a tax assessment or a reassessment, but
It's about 15 years ago.
15, yeah, that sounds about right for this part of the state. So those don't happen very often. So really the only way that you can move this $476,000 is by just increasing the tax rate. Right now, the maximum rate that's allowed under borough code is 30 mils, and Newville is way under that at 7.6. The second major revenue source, the earned income tax, this is actually today a little bit more than half of the 2025 budget. And that's levied on taxable wages. So when you get your paycheck, you see some taxes come out of it. Part of those taxes is local income tax. It's paid by working residents. It's paid by some commuters, retirees, mostly, unless you have some kind of taxable earnings, mostly do not pay this tax at all. When we say this grows naturally without needing a tax increase, basically what we're talking about again is that base. So the base upon which the tax is levied is earnings. So next year, at the end of in January or whenever you have wage increases, you get some kind of a COLA, you get some kind of a wage increase every single year. That base grows naturally from year to year. So even though Newville may only levy the same tax rate every single year, we see that that revenue that the borough is able to bring in actually rise just kind of naturally without needing to do anything. Right now, the maximum tax rate that the borough can levy without any additional special taxing provisions, again, under borough code, is 0.5%. And that was what the rate was before Act 47. So that last bullet point where it says Newville tax rate, that's really made up of two components. It's that 0.5% that's limited by borough code, and it's this special amount that you can have only while you're under Act 47 oversight. So that 1.5%, once you exit Act 47 oversight in, we're thinking 2028, 2029, that amount immediately goes away. So that $585,000 for the borough budget, if you think about, you have 2%, 75% of that is Act 47 tax ability, that immediately disappears once you exit Act 47. This is really just an example of a potential annual tax bill. This is really just based on the average home value and the median household income. This is from the census. A lot of times people will, when we put this data together, will note that the real estate tax is not really close to the assessed value of most people's homes, again, because the tax assessments are so latent. But this is really just to give an example of if you have a home that is worth this amount, this might be your annual tax bill for the borough only. And same thing on the earned income tax, if you make the median household income and you have that amount is taxable earnings, then this may be your annual tax bill for borough taxes only. So Troy's going to basically walk you through the home rule process. That was just an overview of the progress under Act 47.
Thanks, Lauren. Lauren is fantastic at doing the numbers. I'm not, so compliment. So I see a few new faces here, so that's good. So I'll talk about the process of home rule. So Lauren alluded to the fact that it gives you additional taxing flexibility, also gives you greater accountability and transparency for the overall borough governance. How we got into Act 47 here has been well documented. A lot of it is just due to lack of transparency, lack of accountability. And so home rule is a possible way of amending and setting up a new charter that allows citizens to have greater transparency and accountability over the borough. So it doesn't have, hopefully, prevent another situation like this happening again. So you can go back one page. So I'll just read it quick. It transfers that basic authority to act borough affairs from state law. So the borough code was passed sometime in the 1930s, and that's what you guys are currently governed by today. It's been under borough code for about the last 90 years. So this is an opportunity to break away from borough code and write something that's more civic to Newville. Borough code applies to every borough in the state. Some boroughs might fit well, some boroughs might not fit well. You guys are under the same borough code as Shippensburg, as Chambersburg, no longer Carlisle. Carlisle actually changed their home rule now. But there's larger communities that are under borough code as well as smaller communities. And the one size fits all might not work for Newville. This would be a local charter drafted, adopted, and amended by the borough voters. This is a citizen-driven campaign. This is not, borough council already did their part. Right now, this is in the hands of the residents in terms of how they want to move forward with this. So home rule municipalities and exercise powers and perform functions. So you can do pretty much anything that is not in violation of the United States Constitution, Pennsylvania Constitution. May not violate federal law or state law. So this is not forming your own country necessarily. This is simply breaking free of sort of the more archaic borough code. And so if there's a federal law preventing you from doing something, you can't just say, well, we're home rule now, so we're going to do it. You have to abide by federal law. And it's going to transfer authority in municipal affairs from the state law, municipal codes, to a local charter that's adopted and amended by the voters, which is also decided upon, approved, and amended by the voters. The voters will have multiple opportunities to weigh on this directly. So this is not being done in the middle of the night. This will be a very transparent and public process. So why do this? Beyond the financial part of it, again, it's a way to just restructure your guys' government and make it more accountable and just fit better for the borough. It's going to be a citizen-driven review of government. So this is not, the vote in November is not to adopt home rule. It's simply to start a process where residents of the borough can start looking at different opportunities or different options for governance that might fit better for the borough. And it could be that they say, you know what, actually borough code still works best for us, and that's fine. But this is simply a way to look at it and study it and present alternatives to the residents. You have flexibility in governance. Flexibility is a huge part of this. Right now, borough code is fairly constrained. Borough code, not just in taxing powers, but also just in how the government is set up here, and how how your government is run, how the police department is run, how everything is run is just set in stone by borough code. So you can have the ability to move that around a bit. It's enhanced fiscal procedures and controls, transparency, definitely increased citizen participation. This is a citizen-driven campaign. Opportunity for more equitable taxation. Lauren alluded to, senior citizens don't pay an EIT, but they will pay an increase in real estate taxes. This is an opportunity to kind of balance it out. And more sustained financial stability. Next slide. This is a lot of words, but this is just reiterating that you cannot violate state or federal law with a home rule charter. So, for example, you still have to abide by open records law. You still have to abide by the Sunshine Law. You still, you can't just ignore DEP or EPA. You can't ignore OSHA. There's still laws that apply here. The Second Amendment still exists here, and so this is all some limitations to what home rule cannot change. And so, taxation subjects. One key note: you cannot levy new taxes. So you can only change the levers on the taxes you're allowed to levy right now. And the main ones are, as the slide showed, over 90% of your taxes come from your EIT, your earned income tax, as well as your real estate tax. And so you can only really move those levers around. You can't issue a new sales tax. You can't do that. Go next slide. This is examples of home rule municipalities. A lot of people kind of get scared of the concept of home rule, like this is brave new world. A lot of municipalities have done this. The red dot in Cumberland County, as I alluded to earlier, is Carlisle Borough. Carlisle did it not for taxation purposes. Carlisle had a elected tax collector who was not doing a very good job. You'd like to see 93, 94% collection rates on your real estate taxes in the municipalities here in Pennsylvania. I forget where they were at, but they were way below that, which of course can cause a bit of a problem for the borough. And so they did home rule to eliminate the elected tax collector position and make it appointed. And they have a 0.5% EIT. They didn't really change the taxation at all. So missing here is Lancaster City last November, adopted a home rule charter. And so it's kind of spread around. Go to the next one.
I asked a question on that at all.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why is 90% of the dots in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia?
This is where a lot of people are.
I get that.
But it's a good question. So a lot of more rural areas are going to be mostly second-class townships and a lot of smaller boroughs. And they just, honestly, I'm not sure. They just don't really feel the need to.
A lot of them, I can tell from the Philadelphia area is that these are older mainline communities. They're very sophisticated, very large. Upper Darby, which is actually would have been the second largest or third largest town in the state. They went into home rule because they were under first class or borough code many years ago. So they're home rule, same way. So they are very sophisticated, very large, very complex organizations. And they just felt that those communities are not, those rules were not going to be working for them.
So Upper Darby is an example where it's like 50, 60,000 people live there. It was a township, and they decided they wanted a mayor. The town doesn't allow mayors, so they went home rule and not to have a mayor. There's a way you can move things around a little bit. But to your point, also, I believe my hunch would be that a lot of these communities have higher wages, and so the EIT is a little more important to them. But next slide. Here's just another example of some of the ones that are around here. Carlisle, like I said, State College, Ferguson Township. Townships, boroughs, third-class cities have all done this. Again, a lot of the municipal codes were written 80, 90, 100 years ago, and it's just a way for them to write a new charter that makes more sense for them. So, what is the process of home rule? So I kind of like to liken it to having 5 main speed bumps, so to speak. The first one being that you already passed, which is the council has to pass a resolution to put the ballot question on the referendum on the ballot. So that part was passed. The next one is going to be you need at least 7 candidates to run for a governor study commission, and we have to file petitions, and we have succeeded there. We have 11 candidates running. The third bump is what's happening in November, where it's the residents have to vote in November on the ballot to not only pass yes or no home rule, to look at a government study commission, former government study commission, but also to elect 7 candidates. And so if that passes, and if any of these fail, by the way, the whole process fails. But if the November ballot question passes with a simple majority, then the next step would be to form the actual government study commission. And then the fourth one would be, they'll recommend yes or no to adopt the home rule charter, and the fifth one would be a second public vote. So reference placed, voters are asked 2 questions, and the questions are on your handout, the exact question that's going to appear on the ballot. And like I said, they're going to select electors by ballot. It's important to note that if you look at all this and say, I don't like this, I don't think this is right for us, you can vote no. But if you do vote no, I implore you to still vote for 7 members to run. So you say, I don't want this to happen, but if it does happen, I'd rather have these guys on it than those people. So if you vote no, you still get, your vote still counts for the 7 people who are running. Eligible voters, these are all Newville Borough resident voters. They're all residents. Again, if the question fails, there's a 5-year cooling off period where you can't look at it for another 5 years for that question. The timeline, so August 5th was the deadline, we passed that. August 26th, we passed that. November 4th is going to be the next one, it's the third bump, where the question is going to be on the ballot. The question is going to be on the ballot, and it's going to be simple yes or no, as well as the 7 people running. That's going to be in November, and then the next question, our next slide. This is the question. Again, it's on your handouts, but it's important to know, shall a government study commission of 7 members be elected to study the existing form of government, which is borough code, of the municipality to consider the advisability of the adoption of a home rule charter, and if advisable, to draft and recommend a home rule charter. So that is just simply saying what it says. It's, do you want a commission of your neighbors to study the form of government and to recommend yes or no to move forward with a new charter? So if the question passes, and so the question doesn't pass, then this whole process goes away. If the question does pass, within 10 days of certification and election, whenever Cumberland County's election clerk certifies the election, the people who won, this top 7 vote getters, will take their oath of office and form the commission. Within 15 days, they must organize and hold its first public meeting. So November 4th, so November 19th, by November 19th, they'll have the first meeting. And DCD will help them process that meeting and help them along the way. Within 9 months of certification, the Government Study Commission, GSC, must determine either no change or proceed to home rule. So if they say no, that's the 4th bump. They say no, we don't like this, 4 members vote no, then the process is over. If they say, actually, we do like what we can do here, we have some ideas for a new charter, we've talked to other boroughs that have done this, and this makes a lot of sense for us, they'll vote yes, and that's when they actually start writing the charter. And we will also, DCD will we will pay for a consultant to help write the charter. This is what I like. We talked to Lancaster, we talked to Carlisle, we talked to all these other places. I've looked up other places. We like what we see here and here. Can we start putting this together? And the consultant will help you guys put all that together. Unless we have, municipal lawyers running out, I don't think any of us are qualified to write a full charter. And the charter itself is about, depending on the municipality, 50 pages or 100 pages can be give or take. Sorry, go back. We're missing a slide. But if no change, so if the home rule is recommended, the Government Study Commission will have 18 months from election certification to draft a charter for referendum. So that's the actual charter is written. It'll be presented in the rough draft in a public meeting. By the way, all of these, the commission is not doing this in the middle of the night. It's going to be all public meetings. They abide by the Sunshine Act. So residents are encouraged to attend these and give their input and say, I like this, I don't like this, and give feedback for the commission. And so after 18 months, they are, if they say, yes, we want to proceed with the home rule charter, they'll write the charter and they have 18 months to put it on the ballot. And so once the charter is presented in public, the very next election that it qualifies for is going to be, it has to be put on that election. So most likely it'll probably be the May 2027 election or the November 2027 election. And that's where the public has a second opportunity to directly engage and vote on this. And if you have the charter, everyone can see it, and the public can say, yes, we like this, and vote yes on it. The public votes no on it, it goes away. So there's 5 different opportunities for us to fail. So this is like, it's really important to note this is not a quick process. It's a very drawn out, very transparent process where people have plenty of time to have input in it. And the question in November, for this November election, is simply to say, do you want to start looking at this? It doesn't say you're doing it, it just says, do you want to start looking at this? The next slide. Oh, I'm done, all right. So that was it. So I don't know, I think this was an extra slide, was it? This was home rule traits? Yeah. So it sounds scary, but it really is like a pretty deliberate process that is very transparent. DCD will help out as much as they can. The consultant you hire will help out and draft the charter, help write the charter for you guys. Your job is simply say, we like this, we don't like this, and help put this together. And the citizens will have plenty of opportunity to have their input heard. Not only at 2 separate elections, but also attending public meetings and giving their input there. So, I'll open up to any questions anyone has.
Of the communities that have adopted this home rule, what's the approval rate?
You mean the success rate?
Yes.
Good question. I don't actually know off the top of my head.
I think it's about 60% from the stuff I've been seeing over the past few years.
I know Lancaster just did it. They succeeded. There's
Means
Uh,
that
they
they
passed
improved, yeah.
they passed the charter. The ones that fail, I actually don't know how many fail. That's a good question.
Yeah, the only one I know that failed was Carlisle the first time around, but I know that Nanticoke, Plymouth Township, let me see, Carlisle first, second time, Lancaster, Mahanoy City,
There's
at least in the central. Yeah,
There's about 90 home rule communities in Pennsylvania. I'm sure a few have failed, but yeah, I don't know the exact rate. But what it is.
I think he meant to say, once they went home rule, did they like it?
Oh, I am not aware of a single community that did home rule that tried to get out of it. And there really isn't a way to get you can just get out of home rule, you can just re-adopt the borough code if you wanted to. But there's been no community that has been said, we regret this, we want to go back to the old way.
And if they don't like it, they go back and change the charter.
Yep.
They don't go back to
You guys,
the
if you
borough.
pass home rule and you have a new charter and you say after a year you don't like this, you can actually change the charter again.
Yeah.
There's no law that says you have to, the charter you pick in, let's say you pass this and you have it on the ballot in November 2027, and you look at it and go, this is terrible. But it passes anyway and you're like, well, can we change this? Yes, you can do a ballot referendum to change and amend the charter. It's like the United States Constitution was passed and then they realized, oops, we forgot some things, and they passed the Bill of Rights right afterwards. So the same thing can happen here where you pass a charter and realize, actually we missed a few points here and there. By ballot referendum, amend that charter to fix what you want. And if you really wanted to go all the way back to borough code, which I don't know why you would want to do that, but you could vote to say, let's adopt word for word the old borough code if you wanted to do that.
You know, Norristown had adopted home rule, and a few years later they switched. They changed their charter again to change the structure of home rule. That would have been in
People do that
2005.
all the time.
Well, what does it do to existing boards, like the council, economic development,
Right.
like 5 or 6 boards that we had, like, do they?
So it's sort of like a hard reset. You can just, the new council can just vote to put those boards back in. So it wouldn't like, if you guys like those boards.
So they're currently out, in, or?
So any board that is serving at the leisure of the council would be eliminated and they just replace them right away at the first board additional meeting. So that's a big part of this and how your consultant will help working through that process to make sure that it's not a hard reset. It's just simply
That's real quick.
moving things around.
Set. Like,
Yeah.
I
And you can also put in a charter. You actually put in a charter saying, actually, we're going to make sure that planning commission stays this way or whatever it is. Those are parts you can put in your charter.
I mean, there's good parts of every board you got, so.
Right.
So basically, you're saying if the council changes, the whole system can change? They can change it every year if the council changes, if they have an election every year and the borough council changes? They
So-
can change the whole
So the
system?
charter could be written, you want to write the charter that any serious changes would have to be by ballot referendum. So the voters have that say. And so you have small things, other council has to have vote on, small things. But any serious change to the charter would have to be done by ballot referendum. Council can't just say, say we're going to change the whole thing. And as far as changing over council, this home rule charter does not take away the ability for someone to serve. So if you were just, let's say it passes in 2027 and someone on borough council is elected in 2027, and you have 6 borough council members and you decide we're actually going to go down to 5, we can't fire that council member. They can still serve for 4 years. So after 4 years, when their term is done, whether they either resign or leave after 4 years, then in 2031, the borough council
You're
becomes
only
5.
5 instead of 6, right, so I understand.
But, so you can't kick anyone out that's elected, but once their term's up, they're revert that way.
I'm thinking about the time to go through this. So keep the government that we have now until what, 28?
So this would not change the current government at all until the charter is passed. So up until, say it's passed in 2027, in November 2027, it'll be implemented in January of 2028. And that entire time, the current borough council is still your government here. And you're still operating under borough code, which is amended, amplified by Act 47 status.
That would be if then it's approved and then the 7 people come up with it.
It's always
It's after the end of all that.
After all that.
Because I was just wondering how 7 people could like handle all that, but they all stay in there. I mean, I wouldn't want to be on the board that has to replace the council and the development and that.
Yeah, it's an undertaking. It's a lot of work, but a lot of it is going to be a huge assist from the consultant who's going to do a lot of the grunt work.
So how long is this going to take approximately till we get it?
So that depends on how fast you want to work. You're scheduled
Give some
to.
examples of the communities around us, just an idea.
So per the rules, you have a maximum of 18 months, and so you can't take more than a year and a half. But you can take
More than
less.
a year and a half after January 28th.
After the certification election. So the timeline would be you have November election, say it passes. Then from there you have 18 months. So May or June of 2027, yeah, would be the max. That would be the deadline. Now you can finish it earlier than that. So Shamokin City is currently doing this, and they did theirs under a year. They passed the study commission last year, in November 2024, and their final charter ballot questions up for November 2025. So they can do it fast. I don't really recommend doing that. Shamokin had to do it because they're a special circumstance. But you can do it as fast as you want, or you can do it for the full 18 months. But there's no, you have to do it within 18 months.
Within 18 months.
Within 18 months, yeah.
Because a lot of people are going to look in our community, if they go to read this, they're going to see words. And they're going to wonder what's going on. You see how many are here. You see how many were here. I understand the first meeting. I don't know what's going to happen in the 3rd meeting.
Right.
But this is our community we're talking about. We have to make it as clear as we can. And that needs to come out, I think, so they understand it's not going to be 5 years from now, or you're going to be dead before it happens.
Right. Now, the borough is doing a great job of getting the word out. We're trying. I've been out. This 6th time I've spoken up here, I think it is, with the borough to talk about this. So we've been trying to like hold meetings. The goal is to be as transparent. But like, if all 1,200 residents of Newville were here tonight, that'd be awesome. I understand it's not going to happen. But, so yeah, we're trying to make sure everyone's aware of this because we want to make sure whether you say yes or no, we want to make sure every resident understands what the implication is.
Well, you're the good, they just go around and give you $1, you know.
I had to try to get convince Bishop coming in.
What's that?
I had tried to get my neighbor to come along.
Yeah,
And another
you
lady
should.
said, well, they're not gonna do anything about it. I went,
So this has
I don't hear very good.
Lauren's slides earlier. You guys are paying a lot of taxes. You really are, and this is a way of making having a say in how that's going to happen going forward, and how you're going to fund the borough operations going forward. So it matters a lot for all the residents.
You talk about money, you talk about food. Maybe we can offer them food.
I did. Now, when I look at what we owed, 1.2, that certainly doesn't include the money that we borrowed from the water and sewer. Are we planning on paying that back?
Yeah, I can click back to the liability side. Yes, it's not in this table, but the reason it's not in here is we are still working with the borough's auditor to understand
That
how
was
much,
a
how much that
substantial
is.
amount of money.
At this point, we don't know exactly how much it is because the audits aren't completed. So that this table doesn't actually include that amount.
Do
But
you have a rough estimate?
no.
Not even a rough estimate.
I heard it's $1 million, possibly.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We're still waiting on the audit.
And that came from a lot of resorts. And the second question that I had is, you keep saying more transparency. Where does that this is decades in the making.
Mhm.
And we thought, being a resident of 40 years, everybody was transparent. And obviously,
No.
So,
we wouldn't be in this situation. So where does transparency come from? And how do you teach it to the people that you vote for?
right.
I've been to council meetings. I've asked questions. And I did math just in my head when they were passing, let's buy this, buy that, let's do this and that. And I'm looking at a budget and I'm thinking, how do you do that? And they'd say, oh, do we have enough money? And that was good enough for council. But if I'm a citizen and I can see it,
It's good
why
enough for
can not
council. Never
council?
got a computer to pay Paul. I've heard
Right.
all this.
So,
Through the
So
council.
transparency.
with home rule, like, so the main reason why
Yeah.
that went on so for so long is because the borough did not complete an audit since 2015. If they completed an audit, VCU would notice something.
But they can juggle, it's happened for decades, like I said. He just because, and they were reading numbers that weren't legitimate numbers, and that was okay for them.
I can't speak for.
Right, I know, but I'm just saying,
So,
all I hear is transparency, but
one of the things
where do
you
you get
can
it?
do, so BCD we operate by the carrot, not the stick. So we can't come in and like shut you guys down for not doing an audit. You can simply say you're not eligible for a BCD. And so that's an incentive to get people to do the audits. And you can put in their charter that you have to hire a CPA firm to do your audit, and they have to have full ability to have that. And you can tie it to certain funding. You can force no budget can pass until the audit is done from prior year. You can have those provisions in there, and to make the borough, whoever the borough council members are, because you're not talking about individuals right now. You're talking about people 10, 15, 20 years down the road. Who's going to be in council 10 years down the road? 20 years down the road? Who's your borough manager? Who's going to be working there? And so you can put provisions in there that forces them to be transparent. Current borough code does not force, as you all know, force that radical transparency. They can just hide it all.
We pay for a lawyer, isn't that part of his job as well?
Again, you can. I'm not going to get into the full history of it.
I'm just saying, it's hard for me to sit here and believe
So if
that this is gonna change our world.
Well, I can give you a couple good examples from my other home rule communities and what we've done differently since home rule. I mean, since starting this. The first thing is that we never had before a budget to actual report. You did not have that before. You were not sharing, your previous manager was not sharing the financial statements with the elected officials. Right now, we actually have send out to our elected officials all of our bank statements. We have that. We also have an audit, which will be coming out. We've been publicizing the audits that we've received from the state since at least for the past year or two. And that's normally the pension audit, it's the liquid fuels audits. We'll have the fireman's relief audit. Those go up on the website as well as they are introduced at Borough Council. You can mandate that stuff. You can mandate that the auditor has to give a presentation. That's how I've had it in all my other communities. But you have actual budget to actual reports. On our website, we have a listing of all the bills every single month and who they're to. And we also put on there, well, what about last month's bills? We want to make sure that those were actually paid because our history was that we were tucking them into desk drawers. Here, they're reconciled. And we put that up on the website. You can also have different things like you can have 2 readings of the ordinance rather than 1. So normally under the borough code, introduce the ordinance in October, you vote on it in November. Well, it has to be introduced, it has to be reviewed at 2 meetings before it's approved. You know, you can do that. You can have different things with the budget. You know, there's a lot of different things that you can do in order to improve the transparency and to allow greater citizen comment.
So these 7 people are going to be elected,
Right.
and for how long? For the duration
18
of
months, maximum 18 months.
18
what happens
months?
then?
Yeah.
Once they finish and write the charter, their job's done. But once this process is done, gets voted on, whether it's yea or nay, the commission is dissolved. It's not permanent. It's not a permanent commission. And to your point though about transparency, like this all happened with the current borough code, and it clearly didn't work. So
She's saying transparency is after number was in fact.
and I'm not to say this is going to be like a perfect pill shot for you guys. If you have 4 actors in any situation, you're going to have problems. So, but hopefully, this is a way for citizens to have more engagement with that. Enforce, as Bob was mentioning, more readings, more having to read out each year what the audit was. So there's a way of forcing it so that the audit doesn't get buried for 10 years. Do you have a question up there?
So I don't live in the borough, but I have a Newville address. Like, so should I care about this? Is really my question, because that's what everybody, at least, you know, is saying. I don't live in the borough, why should I care about this?
Well, you can't vote. So while you hear me, you're not going to be affected by taxation, but you always want to have your local borough to be successful and healthy. If that's
Right.
A way.
People
of
working in
abroad.
we have employees that work outside but have to come here and they're paying more.
Right.
Yeah, that looks good.
No.
They get no advantage.
Yeah. But to your point, your direct dollar amount, it won't affect you at all. But it's always good to have your neighbors in good standing. So. Maybe not. Maybe he does a rivalry.
Jeff lives in Borough, do you? You don't live in the borough, do you?
I do? Yes, I do.
Where are you at?
40 years.
So, any other questions?
Oh, yeah, 'cause I know your mom.
I know there's a few people who are actually running for city commission, and at the end, I'd like to have the opportunity to introduce themselves. But, do anyone else have any other questions for myself or Lauren?
Who does it affect, though? Ones that live here, work here?
It's going to affect. So the only tax that would be affecting people who work here but don't live here would be your LSD, and you can't affect the LSD through a home rule. That would stay at a maximum of $50.
Earned income tax doesn't go by
Earned income tax goes by where you live.
where you live.
Yeah. So if where you live doesn't collect an earned income tax, and where your work does, they can collect it from there. But almost everyone
Yeah,
collects
I
it.
was thinking
So,
that, yeah, it's 2.5.
Yeah.
And so your guys' total EIP years, actually, it's not just the 2 years. Big Spring School District collects 1.3, I think it is, off your income. So I can't vouch for what Big Spring School District is doing as a whole. They're their own group, but the borough itself can do.
Because we had confusion with the accountant because we had people at my office live here, work here. And then we had ones that live elsewhere and work here, and they made us raise their.
So, yeah, the Act 47 tax does apply to commuters, but under home rule, you cannot tax commuters higher than the 0.5. So if they live somewhere that doesn't have a tax at all or has a tax that's lower than 0.5, they would still have to pay the 0.5 to Newville. But
So-
let's say if Newville has a 1%, it wouldn't impact the commuters.
So if we changed the 7 people changed the taxation after Act 47 goes away, the ones that live out and work here would go back to 0.5.
Yeah, and that's more of a function of Act 47. So when Act 47, when you exit that, then the commuter tax will go back to what it was.
And the main reason for that is Act 47 is state law, whereas home rule is by definition home rule. And so you can't change rules for someone's a different municipality.
Bob, you gave us a nice packet that said home rule on it. That's online now, isn't it?
Everything's online.
I
Yep.
had that. And
Yep.
I had some things on it and I can't find it.
Yeah, I think you have on our website that you have the DCD handbook on home rule, all the handouts that we've given out here, and just a general definition of what it is.
Good,
Yep.
because that had a decent amount of info.
When I listen and I talk to people what's gonna happen though to our community with this? Is this gonna make our community better?
I hope.
I mean, you people sitting here, or, you know, you go through Newville, you look at Newville, what has happened. I lived here over 50 years, and I can't see that it's gotten much better.
Some places have.
Some places have. But you look at Boiling, I'm not gonna say that, but Mount Holly, Shepherd's, their streets are a little bit cleaner than what ours are.
Yeah, we don't have, street cleaners anymore. We
Yeah.
got grass growing in front of mine.
And
On Main Street.
the houses
I know what
the
you mean
way
by that.
it is, or the houses where they are, and people are talking, I mean, they always talk about Newville, you know that. But it's a shame, because we have some beautiful, beautiful homes here. We have beautiful things in Newville. We have so much to be proud of. And I get tired of hearing people put us down. And they say, well, what's gonna happen when you get all, you know, you pass this and you do that? Are you gonna have anything better? Or is it gonna be the same? So twice I tried to call you, sir, and talk to you about something. I never got a return call.
Your name, ma'am?
Diane Whitener.
Okay, I was, yeah.
My life, lady.
Oh, yeah, are you talking about Bob?
Oh,
Me.
yes, my name.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry,
And
yeah.
Mr. Rover, he does so much for our community.
No, I've never seen your name come up on my list, but
No, that's interesting, even better.
Yeah.
Who'd you call?
I called the secretary.
Well, that's not.
Yeah.
So, but to your
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
ma'am,
That's another problem,
Yeah.
you're not interested in
Yeah.
that. But you understand, is this gonna help us?
So this is
We don't know that.
I don't know that
The
for sure.
people
I'm not
sitting
gonna
here
pretend I
never
know this.
charge me, we should know that.
What this is an opportunity to do is, this is simply forming a commission as you look at this, and that can be part of the discussion around the new charter, is like, how to make this borough better. And that can be a public discussion and actually looking at that, versus just simply saying, well, no, it's, or that's.
People wanna know that.
So, this is not locking you guys into anything, it's simply looking at this and having a public discussion about the future of Newville. In ways it can be better.
Can the charter change?
I can't get one
You
done.
can vote to do that. You have to be a resident of Newville to vote.
What about Pennsylvania?
Well, I guess, my question is, so, with that being said, as a property owner, I have no say over Newville. I am a property owner in Newville, and I have no say over Newville, as in, I can't vote here.
Okay.
Because I don't live here. And that's my question. If you adopt the home rule,
Right.
can they, can I vote in only Newville elections?
But if you rent to people, part of your.
That's a good question. I know other cities have done this or tried doing this to like say, you know, we're gonna have a special city only, not in Pennsylvania, but my instinct is say, no, I don't think that would work, but I can look into this.
All right, thank you.
Well, we have a lot of property owners. People own a property, and they rent out to the people that rent, quote unquote, go take care of the place. So you get slumlords. Not saying you're one.
Where this has been adopted,
No, I'm.
What's that?
as in Newville, we have a large number of rental properties. Do renters move out once they realize they are getting another tax, or do they just suck it up?
So, good question, but right now, the good news is, and Lauren's kind of touching, well, we're kind of touching on it right now, is a lot of these have been repaid, and currently Newville is having a much higher tax rate to run a large surplus to pay off all these old debts. And as these debts are paid off, you don't need to run that big of a surplus, so your taxes are going to start going down. Regardless of Act 47 or home rule, your taxes should start going down as these debts are paid off. Now, obviously, there's sewer bomb, find out, but to your point, though, the goal here is to have the flexibility to ensure that you're not putting too much pressure on homeowners and people who live here, as well as making sure renters who might live here temporarily, live here for 2 years, but they have, they work a job, making sure that everything's fair and equitable for everyone, for the whole community.
The Act 47, if somebody quits, has to do with why things don't look as nice. And I didn't know if we were allowed to hire, you hear there's a free.
We have caps, you know, with total revenue or total expenditures for personnel. We can work anything within there.
Okay.
You know, but also, you know, yeah, and I hear out the grass growing on that along the curb line. Unfortunately, you know, the borough itself cannot be responsible for every homeowner's pride. I mean, it's terrible. I hate to say that, you know, but you know, I rent. I make sure that I clean up in front of there. I spray it once a week or whenever the grass is growing. You know, I don't. It just drives me nuts when you have weeds growing this high and in front of owner-occupied homes, and they won't reach over and pull it. I don't understand that thinking. Yeah. I just don't understand that, and so it comes back in some way to installing a sense of purpose and pride in your community, and going through this process here. You know, it allows us to get a lot more stable financially. Financially stable means that things start happening. Newville becomes boring again. That's what I always talk about. I want to make Newville boring again. But boring means that everything is going right. And this is a process that might help that.
Well, the other thing was, we're not allowed to burn in Newville.
That's most boroughs, yeah.
But
yeah.
The neighbor does it anyhow.
When did we?
Scratches up the hair and it's burning, so I can complain all I want,
Yep.
but
Yep.
you can't do everything.
Yep.
I know that.
Yep.
Yeah, it's my fault I didn't clean in front of my house, but I will do it
Well,
tomorrow.
yeah. I didn't know this.
It was me.
Okay.
But I've
No.
done it,
But
but
yeah.
it just keeps growing. Oh, we used to have the street cleaners, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and we do
There's
that.
no
You know,
street
usually we
sweepers,
do it
and
just
that's
twice
like
a
what-
year now. Yeah.
And that's what I was getting
Yeah.
at, because I haven't seen them, you know, you can hear them during the middle of the night or early in the morning. But I haven't seen any of that going on, and I saw, what's his name, the laundromat, Spencer. Yeah, him and his wife were out cleaning, out around the light, you know, and I'm like, yeah, that's what we have to do. I'll do it, no big deal. Get the weed whacker out and do it.
Any other questions on home rule? I'd love to talk about it.
Sorry.
You bring your weed whacker.
No thanks. I didn't know that at home. If not, I know there's a few candidates that are here. Opportunity to stand up and introduce yourself. Give it a little quick spiel like well. There's 11 running. I'm not sure how many are here tonight, but please introduce themselves. So, let's go first.
Hi, I'm Heather Wade. I live on Walnut Street with my husband and our 2-year-old son. We've been homeowners in the borough for 4 years. I graduated in 2006 from Big Spring, but I've lived in the area my whole life. Just really want to see the borough get back to being the way it used to be, and I want to be part of the change that I want to see.
Hi, my name is Martina White, for those of you who don't know me. I have been coming to Newville for 10 years. I've lived here full-time for 4 years. And I'm just launching a bed and breakfast business on Parsonage Street. So I have a lot invested here in this community.
The bed and breakfast, and I was wondering.
Now you know it. 19 Parsonage Street. I happen to have the flyer here. I don't know.
Wait, is this a business?
Not talking about that. Not talking about that. But prior to moving here, I have 30 years of experience doing analysis, budgeting, consulting, and stuff like that. So I thought I could bring some skills to the conversation. I would look forward to collaborating with everybody else in the group and really studying and understanding like what's going to be best for the community, and hoping that the folks who are here today, folks who aren't here today, will come to those meetings, will participate in those meetings. So the study really is studying what's important to everybody, making sure that whatever we decide and put into the charter is what's going to work for everybody
know, what does happen if we, I think Troy mentioned this, but just for people who are landowners, who don't have a lot of income coming into this community, if we don't enact home rule and we go back to the borough rule after Act 47 expires, the only lever that gets lifted is the property tax, so the landowners are going to feel that pinch. So, you know, one of the opportunities we have is to look at making adjustments there so it's fairer for everybody. So I'd just like to be part of that conversation and collaborate with everybody on the team.
I'm Jim Gutschall, most of you know me. My fifth grade teacher's right over there. The mayor's right there. So I know everybody from this community, and I know what's at stake here. I'm not in it for myself. I'm in it for Newville. I see change. If we take the opportunity to make that change, I think this will be a good thing. We have a lot of good people that I think that would serve this committee to its fullest and get this home rule thing done. I'm all for it. I'm ready. I'm excited to see what it's about.
Hi. Jeff Bowder, went to Big Spring, graduated 1981. Before you. I opened an office in Newville and moved to Newville in 1990. So been here, it's a long time, 35 years or something like that. So I've seen 35 years. I didn't come here a lot when I was going to school, but I did come here because I wanted to come back where I went to school to have my business. So I see it from a business point of view, and I see it from the land, because I have some rental properties from that point of view, and also from living here. I'd like to see some changes. I'm also on the Economic Development Committee, and just want to see some changes that make it desirable for a few businesses to come to town, maybe. I'd like to see a few more businesses, and it wouldn't hurt if we had some less rental. I have some rentals too, but it would be ownership makes things look better in general if we have a higher amount of ownership. So just think I have some things I can contribute. I kind of just sat back and ran my business and was successful in Newville, so I'd hate to see anything happen to it. And don't mind giving back.
Thank you.
You want to be?
You don't want to be the last one, he said.
Well, I said he's gonna be the last one. My name is Catherine Foster Baker. I graduated Big Spring, not in '81. My kids graduated Big Spring. My husband and kids and I, we live off of Broad Street, right by the Newville convenience store. I used to work for the borough of Newburgh, and I have sat in council meetings and have done a lot of administrative work. I know how boroughs are supposed to run and the rules of the borough code. And right now I work for Silver Spring Township and feel that I can bring a lot to the table as far as connections and knowledge and that sort of thing. So, yeah, that's me. You're up, please.
Sharp over, 60-year resident. I think what's important is the first vote should be a yes. I think no matter who's on the commission, I think we could be the envy of the county or the state if we think about what we want to do. Transparency could be in that and a lot of other things. I call it the fair tax. Again, the first vote is a painless vote. It should be, and I hope everyone tries to say yes. The second vote in 18 months, that's the one where you can say, hey, you failed, or I don't like what you're going to do to us. That's the one that counts, so we're not on the hook for the first vote. It should be yes. Thank you.
love our community. We have such a beautiful community. And I think it can even be better. I look at this and I see good things. What we need to do is educate our community. We need to educate them. And whether it's gonna be hot dogs and ice cream, or whatever we have to do to get them in here, let's just all together try it, all right? Because it's worth it. Our community is worth it.
That's all I had, so thank you all for coming out tonight. I appreciate everyone who's running. It's gonna be a lot of work, and I appreciate that. And I think everyone who actually did come out as residents or as non-residents to learn more about this. So I appreciate y'all, and we'll have a final one on October 29th. We'll be here again. I'll be doing the whole thing, I think, next time. And then obviously the vote is gonna be on November 4th. So thank you again.
I appreciate you.